Have you ever wondered how good is Super TF actually at Deadlock? I mean, we all know that when it comes to cosplaying Deadlock characters, I mean, Super is pretty goated. And obviously, he's got an extensive competitive Overwatch experience. But when it comes to Deadlock, a game that he plays casually just for fun, how good is he actually? Well, I found his account. It's not very hard to find. Raring Garlic 118, and he's currently a Turnus 5, ranks 861 on the North American leaderboards. Now, for someone that plays this game casually, and you know, it's not his main game, it's not the only game he plays, that's a very high rank and it's extremely impressive. But let's take a look at one of his games to see what we can learn about the way he plays and maybe some things that he could improve on so that we can all learn from it, but also see what he's really good at. Now, the game that we're going to look at today is this game right here. The reason why I picked this game is because he does fairly well in this one. He goes 14, 10, and 12. So I thought that it would be the most fair shot at, you know, his peak performance. I don't want to look at a game where I know that he's not doing well KD wise, and also he's playing Lash, and Lash is his most played hero, and you know, that's one thing that Super and I have in common. Also, he did say that if I did not paint him in a positive light, he would delete my channel, so I do have to be very careful about what I say.
Smart.
Hey Super, I'm gonna make a video about you, just letting
Hey,
you
thanks,
know
Deathy.
it's gonna be good, don't worry, smile.
If you slander me at all, I'm taking down your channel. So make it good, bro.
Now, before we get into the game itself, I always like to look at a couple stats just to get an idea of like what any player might be lacking. The first thing I look at is damage breakdown. This gives me an idea of like what players are hitting or not hitting in the early game. So for example, here in the first 20 minutes, I noticed that his trooper damage is a bit on the low end. It's 16,000. That's not super low. To give you guys an idea, usually I'm like, hey, around 20,000 is good, but obviously it's very hero dependent and it depends on a lot of factors. So it really doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily bad to have 16,000 trooper damage. His player damage is quite good at 15,000, and his neutrals is also at 12,000, which is a little high for a hero like Lash, who doesn't really like farming that much. His objective damage, 1,400, is a little on the low end. We can see here in the first 10 minutes, he doesn't get any tower damage at all. So probably had a bit of a rough lane. Now I like to look at the damage dealt by type just to see if I notice anything kind of like really odd or missing or any low damage. For example, here his headhunter damage at the end of the game is quite high. I don't notice anything that, you know, comes off to me as like, wow, this is really problematic and needs to be looked at here. His damage breakdown looks pretty normal for Lash in the current meta, so nothing to see here. All right, now we're getting into the actual game. For this review, I'm going to be looking on his mini map only, so I'm not going to see any vision that he doesn't see, so that it's just like I'm coaching him, but he's not there, right? So we're going to look at his positioning and the way that he plays the laning stage as Lash in this matchup. So he's going against, I believe, Pocket Viscous. Now, Lash's lane isn't anywhere near as strong as it used to be. One thing that I noticed right away is he's pushing the wave very quickly. Now, this is a clear sign of a good player. Getting wave priority is very, very good. He's probably not, you know, 100% focused here as he's a streamer, right? He probably could have gotten a little extra damage onto the Pocket Viscous there, but a great start. His first item is Headshot Booster. He's just following a pretty standard Lash build. That's one of the most common first items for Lash. It does a lot of damage and provides great poke in the lane. So one small hint that I noticed right away is he bought Headshot Booster, but he didn't look to use it right away. So that's something that could definitely be improved. With items like these, you always want them to be on cooldown if possible. And Viscous is particularly easy to headshot, so he could have pretty easily just headshot the Viscous or the Pocket there and kept going. Now here he's opting to play a little bit more defensively, kind of going for denies. This is completely fine given the way that the lane has been going, meaning that they've had pressure, but they haven't been able to really do much with it. I really do want him to shoot the enemies a little bit more. But overall, I think he's got great lane fundamentals, and he shows like a clear understanding of like, okay, he wants to be aggressive when the troopers are at the enemy tower. Biggest problem here is he's been denied a lot, right? So a little bit careless with the last hits, something that you want to be careful about, because right now last hits are very, very important, but the enemy team is also being careless. So souls wise, it's about even because both teams have gotten a decent amount of denies. Gets the small camp right on respawn, right? This is what separates the good from the great players, is like getting there right the second it spawns. He was there, he was ready. So that shows great game understanding for sure. Now here, the next thing I'm going to be looking for is what he does on this wave, and more specifically after this wave, as the boxes are going to be spawning around 3 minutes. So we'll see if he's kind of on time. Great flog on both players there, hitting both players. Also the sign of a good Lash. You always want to try to flog both if you can. Unfortunately, doesn't manage to secure wave priority for this wave. It was kind of hard, you know, given the Viscous and Pocket were being kind of quite aggressive. So I don't really fault him for that. Looking for a ground strike here. Amazing ground strike. Great damage on the pocket. One thing I do want to see a bit in this lane is I think focusing damage on pocket as Lash can be very effective, given pocket has a negative spirit resistance. It's kind of something you always want to do. And here it looks like he's going to make the decision to go for boxes right away. I think this is a great decision, given the health differences between the lane. He's very, very hurt, meaning he can't be super aggressive. I actually would have liked to see him commit more. So one small thing here, it wasn't really his fault, but the Great Talon decided to push the wave while he decided to go run boxes. So I think there they just weren't on the same page. Not entirely his fault though, and right away he's going to get back to running boxes after the wave is fully pushed. I'd love to see him steal some of the enemy boxes if possible. Looks like his Great Talon is also doing a box route, and he's going to be running boxes passively. His small camp has just respawned. We'll see if he notices. Does not notice. So that's a small thing. It might not seem like a big deal, but against better players, they could have potentially stolen his small camp, and you really want to like, this damage on Viscous is not really that useful right now, and they're not going to have wave priority. So in this situation, he could have really just done the small camp with ground strike, especially given he's saving up to his next item. As you can see here, he's walking forward into a full wave. This is probably the biggest mistake we've seen on the laning stage, where he's going to lose a lot of his HP. He could have gotten the small camp. Instead, he runs into a full enemy wave, uses his abilities, and takes a negative trade. And here he might lose the small camp as well. So here he buys his next item, which is Quicksilver Reload, and here he's sitting on 160 HP. Now, if you're ever on this HP, objectively, you can't be aggressive, right? Like, he can get one shot by both Pocket and Viscous, so he's got to be very, very careful of the level of aggression. And the next wave is very important because it's the buff wave. So at this point, what that means is that he's going to have to give up the buff. There's no way that he's going to be able to go contest the buff. And what I would do is let them push the wave into my tower, and then I would clear the wave, and I would probably look to go back to base because, you know, it's just not possible to be aggressive here with this HP. Although he goes in on Pocket, I think that this was unbelievably risky and unnecessary. So I would not have done that at all. And I think he could have very, very easily died there. Luckily, they got kind of scared. Because look, I mean, he took one splatter. He's almost dead. If he took one splatter when he went in and Pocket used Satchel, that was it for him. Great decision to reset, though. He's going to have plenty of time to reset because people are going for the buff. So Great Talon's actually going to get the buff. So a bit of a misplay by the enemy team. He gets asked to cosplay Mina again by his teammate. Now, that... Like I said, his cosplay skills are definitely not to be doubted. I mean, his Deadlock skills are really good too. Spoiler, we're going to do little rankings for each of his categories. So I'm going to give him a rating at the end of the laning stage on what I thought of his lane out of 10. And then after, we're going to give a rating for the macro and a rating for the mechanical skill towards the end of the game. But here he comes back to the lane. It's 5:30, so the camps are up. So here, what I'd expect to see, right? I'm going to pause for a second. Right now, the souls are about even. However, Great Talon's going to get ult before they do. In this situation, you really have a few plays. One, you can try to be aggressive. Two, you can gank. Or three, you can just focus on your souls. So what I want to see is I want to see him do one of these three things. I don't want to see him hesitate too much. The worst thing you can do really is just do none of those three and just kind of like waste your time. For example, here, if he goes back, he's going to buy Mystic Burst. That's fine. This is a huge power spike for Lash. 2 points Flog, Quicksilver Reload, Mystic Burst. You do a lot of damage. Goes for the aggression here. I have no problem with this. This is good aggression. Great trade for them. They've got health advantage now. He's going to tank the troopers a little bit, but it's not the end of the world considering the health advantage. McGinnis is zipping in, and despite that, he decides to still move forward. Now, that's a little unnecessarily risky, probably given the rotation. He knows he's in a 2 versus 3. If you're ever in a 2 versus 3, usually you should just back up, hold your resources, and try to stall because they're going to try to push your tower, and you just want to hold it. So if he backed up when he saw McGinnis on the rope, he would have kept his entire health pool, and he would be able to defend this tower. Whereas right now, he's probably going to have to give it because he can't actually do anything. He can zip speed, but considering it's McGinnis that's ganking, Abrams actually comes over to help the tower, so it should be okay. And there's actually going to be 3 people in this lane. Now, a small thing is when there's 3 people, usually you don't really want to go back to a lane where there's this many people, because even if you get kills, you're going to split them with a lot, right? So I think here I would just trust my teammates to be able to handle that, and I would go to the opposite lane to stop the tower push there, which it looks like that's exactly what he does. So that's an amazing heads-up play. So that's a great macro play, identifying the rotations that happened and adjusting accordingly. You know, I wouldn't expect anything less from the top 850 player. Goes for the healing trooper. Unfortunately, gets one shot. So perhaps a little overzealous. I think that the rotation there was overzealous. The biggest mistake that I'm noticing so far from Super's gameplay is that he struggles a little bit to realize when he's in situations where he's not favored at all, right? So for example, we take back to the lane, we think about the situation where he was going and tanking a full wave, lost all of his health. We think of the situation where McGinnis rotated, and just now he rotated into a 1 versus 2, and his approach was kind of like a fairly aggressive approach when I think he should have really been just trying to stall and try to clear the wave. He probably thought he could clear the wave and live, but he was definitely a little too aggressive. So that's the biggest mistake I've noticed from his gameplay so far, is maybe a difficulty like recognizing when situations are unwinnable and just conceding those resources and trying to make the most out of a bad situation. Now, Sinners are going to spawn very soon, and he's kind of very poor because instead of staying in the lane here, he went to do a small camp. Probably not the wisest decision, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter. Other people on his team got money. It's just that he's got quite a poor soul start here. So we'll see what he can do with it. Obviously, Sinners is one of the most important timings in the game because that's when a lot of souls are determined. Here she's using Yamato. This is a great chase. Yamato does not have ult. It should be a free kill. Yep, great kill. 3 people here is a little more than you'd like. Instantly goes for the Sinners. That's amazing. One small little thing I'd be careful about is this Calico could come back and try to do something, but considering he's got 2 teammates, I think he feels pretty good about that. And here I would want to see him hit his own Sinners very quickly. So this is like a small thing, right? But okay, think about this. Here in this situation, he's half HP. He's less than half HP. He's not going to be able to make an aggressive play, and there's a Sinners available right here. And he knows he just obtained a wave priority here, and the Calico is being pressured. So there's a distraction. The Paradox and the Drifter are the distraction. So it's very unlikely he gets gone on here if he gets the Sinners. And if he gets the Sinners, he can go back to base, which he probably is going to have to do either way. Now, I can see the argument for maybe staying, but right now he's doing a little bit of both, right? He's already got a huge unsecured bag, so he probably doesn't want to fight. So I would just do the Sinners, go back to base, buy, and then get active somewhere else. So he actually spends all of his money, which is great. He was able to spend all of it. Then he does the Sinners. It's just, it's a small order thing, right? It's like now it's not as good of a time to do the Sinners because the distraction isn't there. Although this Yamato does go in and just feed. Great ult on the Calico. She has ultimate. Will he recognize it? Okay, good patience there. Very well played. Okay, that was almost flawlessly played. He could have maybe like stalled a little bit more in the air with a wall jump, but overall he played that fight really, really well. And he was like one of the poorest on his team. And now with that, the Sinners, as well as this, he's caught up in souls, and that's exactly what he needed to get back into the game. So I really like that he's going back to base here. He's not afraid to just reset for health, right? Like, and he's going to get some boxes. Great soul efficiency. I mean, honestly, I'm seeing a lot of really, really good gameplay out of Super here. Obviously, no surprise, right? He is top 1,000 in North America, which is obviously really good. This box run is maybe a bit longer than I would have made it. And he's actually not going to go back to base here. It looks like he's fine with his HP. I think that considering he was already really close to base, I would have made the decision to go back. But one thing that I do like is that he is focusing on soul efficiency, which is he's just generating as many souls as possible. Now, the reason why, considering he was so close, I would have gone back is just because you want to be healthy for what's about to come, which is the urn's about to spawn and the buffs are about to spawn. Now, his way of becoming healthy here, he's going to go fight McGinnis, which I really like. This McGinnis is overextended. He is taking a lot more tower damage. Turret damage than you would like. Almost kill him. But overall, we're fine with that, right? I mean, we created a lot of pressure. If he killed McGinnis, that would have been super worth it. Warden comes over. He's still fairly healthy. I mean, Flog does a great job of keeping people healthy. If he had Headhunter as well, he could probably just heal and not really have to go back to base. And here it looks like he's in a 2 versus 2. Up 4K. It goes on the Warden a little bit, but not too much. Just trying to hold the tower. Once again, I think you got to be a little bit careful on the levels of aggression here. As Paradox is going in, I think this is a good swap. Great grapple. Goes for the ground strike. And I think he should be able to, get the skill. Nice, beautiful, well played. It's on a 3-kill streak. So I'm going to tell you guys right away, Super's best attribute by far is his mechanical skill. And, that's to no surprise. I think that he, was a top player in Overwatch, of course, right? One of the best in the world. And so the fact that he has good mechanics doesn't surprise anyone. And it's one of the things that helps his gameplay the most. Now, surprisingly, his macro gameplay has actually been pretty good so far. Like, I haven't seen a lot of major mistakes. It's mostly like knowing when to give up certain resources because it's not, beneficial for you. Like here, for example, this fight mid, it looks mostly okay. McGinnis does ult, which might make it bad. Unfortunately, he does go down. I mean, I think he honestly could have killed the Viscous. Like, it was really close. And if he kills the Viscous there, then it's completely fine. So if he kills the Viscous and he trades, the reason why it's fine is because there's 3 enemies there. And so if he dies to 3 people, it doesn't really give that many souls. And right now, he's at one of the points where he's going to be the strongest in the game. He's got max Flog. Once he gets 2 points grapple, that's going to be really like his strongest point in the game for a while. So that's usually when you want to try to like do things as Lash. Here he's going to go to Abrams. So this, not Abrams, but Yamato. This might not seem like a mistake, but this is a slight mistake. And the reason why is because when there's a kill like this on a person that's this deep, this kill is what I would consider a guaranteed kill. And so he doesn't really need to go there. And since he went there, unfortunately, it means that they're going to split the kill 4 ways. And I think that we should put on the screen the kill share, like the soul share percentages for kills. But basically, when you kill someone with with 3 or 4 people or more, you actually get less money than if you kill someone with 1 or 2 people. So you want to try to avoid overgrouping because it really, really reduces the amount of souls that you get from a kill. So here in this situation, I expect to see him go on this side of the map, and I actually really like it, but we're going to see what happens. But the reason why I like this is because the wave mid was pushed, and now he's going on a side of the map that, hey, let's take this tower, let's get some pressure. Here, I think he probably just take this tower without getting the wave. He probably knows that. Buries the tower. Beautiful stuff. Pocket fights him a little bit. I don't really think Pocket's in a situation where he can fight him, so no problem with this. Viscous gets on top of him. A little bit of panic here. I think this is when you kind of like should reset. You've got too many people here. So this is an example of like, hey, you've got 5 people here. I mean, maybe you can kill the Viscous, but either way, you got the tower. There's really nothing to fight for. This is like a complete burger fight. So if you have an item like Trophy Collector, you can be happy with these fights because it can be like kind of a gamble to get you into the game. But without Trophy Collector, I'm not the biggest fan of this fight. It does look like they might have numbers advantage, right? So that is something that is in their favor, but I wouldn't overstay here in this situation. Okay. So yeah, this is definitely when it gets to an overstay, right? Like at this point, when Drifter gets caught, this is when you're just like, all right, I'm out. Now, unfortunately, he is playing against Yamato, and it's going to be really hard to escape Yamato. This was just bad movement. He should have been able to live here. I mean, it looks like he might live still. Yeah, so what he should have done there, this was just slight miscalculation movement-wise. I'm just going to back up to where he should have done something different. So right here, when he's on the Yamato right here and he grapples, he should have kept going and like tried to get away. Unfortunately, like he could have went this way and then made his escape that way. But unfortunately, he chose to wall jump back in, and well, that led to his death. So just a small little mechanical misplay there. But overall, definitely overstayed on that fight. There was 5 people there. They were fighting over nothing. That's one of those fights that's like completely pointless. And then the Rift is on the other side, right? So like even if they had won that fight, they probably would not have been advantaged for the Rift. But now they lost the fight, which means Warden can probably just solo get this Rift without being contested. Doesn't look like anyone can get there in time. So they go from being the team that's in the lead to all of a sudden being the team that is completely even. I think another one of the best attributes that I'm noticing from Super's gameplay is the fact that he's always doing something, right? He's not really spending a lot of time hesitating. He's always generating souls one way or another, whether it's from boxes, whether it's from camps, he's always doing something. And that's, you know, ensuring that he's not going to fall behind in souls dramatically. And I think that contributes to the high neutral damage that we saw. So here, it looks like Yamato. So I think this is just like kind of something that you have to be careful of. He goes for the ground strike, which is not necessarily terrible. You do have to be careful though. Ground strike is not great right now, especially like without any green items. You have to be careful of committing so hard. And here it looks like he's going to get 1v1 by Yamato. I mean, he could just run away. Oh, I see. Yeah, you probably don't want to do that. Right. Okay, so this is just him like way overestimating like what he can 1v1 and can't 1v1. So there was a Yamato with ult there, and he tried to ult her. If he really just like used a grapple on the walker, he could have escaped at any moment, but he committed to the fight. So that was just a slight overcommitment, and I think that's going to be a very, very common theme with Super's gameplay. Shows up to the walker to defend it here. 15 minutes into the game, buffs and Urn are about to spawn. Let's see if he's able to get there on time. Messed up the movement a little bit, but that's okay. The buff just spawns. Vitality buff. Looks like Abrams is going to get it, so he's going to just assume as Abrams gets it, he's going to farm this camp instead. Once again, I love this, like, right? I love the fact that he's not wasting any time. He's like, okay, my Abrams got the buff. I'm going to instantly farm this. I think that's fantastic, and I think that's great. Here, Great Talon picks up the Urn. One thing I'm noticing, right, is that there's a lot of... This is something that I see a lot with, like, kind of, like, not top players, but that are still really good, is there's a lot of wandering towards mid. Now, that can be fine, and it's kind of natural in the mid game of Deadlock to do that. One thing I'll say is like, you know, he could totally set up more plays on the side lane with like one player. Now, of course, you know, he's usually talking to chat and doing all these things, so it's kind of hard. But in situations like this, right, like he could look to see it's like, okay, can we set up a play on the side lane? Given everybody's missing, it's not really a great time, but we'll just keep an eye on these situations to see could more plays on the side lane be made, because you want to avoid just having like a ton of people just down mid looking for random engagements. For instance, here, Drifter's going in. Doesn't really get much out of it. Now Super shows up on Lash, realizes, okay, not much is happening. And now we've got 8 people mid, right? Like this is exactly the type of situation that you want to avoid, because this really reduces your agency. And as we can see, the amount of time that Super has spent doing that, despite having a lot of jungling, right? He's cleared a lot of camps. He's quite far behind on, well, not quite far, but he's a little behind on souls compared to other people on his team. So I'd prioritize making plays on side lane a little bit more over running boxes in these instances. For example, like even here, right? You see Warden, there's a bunch of people mid. There's nothing that prevents Super here from just going to the side lane and clearing that wave at the walker to create extra pressure. And the thing is, Lash is really good at doing this because Lash can always grapple away and it's really hard to catch him. So even though you're not really great at killing the walker, although this build's actually not bad at killing the walker because you've got bullet resist shredder and 2 points in grapple, it's still good to apply that pressure, and it's gonna free up some pressure from your teammates mid. And if they come in on your teammates mid, you get the walker, and if they don't, then you can always rotate once someone comes to you the walker. So that's just something like here doing the double centers. I don't really love it, although it's okay. Like I like the efficiency, but I would prefer putting pressure on the map right now because someone's running the urn. So usually I kind of like try to limit the amount of jungling that's happening when an objective is being run actively on the map. Because if you look as the urn is being run, none of the waves are really in favor of Super's team, and I think that's a little bit of a problem. And Pocket's actually the one that showed up on the side lane, and Super can totally like 1v1 Pocket unless he gets afflicted, especially with Flog. Pocket has a little bit of difficulty interacting with Lash because you kind of stay in the air, and then you just Flog off cooldown every 9 seconds, and Pocket takes extra damage from Flog, so it hurts even more. I like that he's clearing the side wave here. I love that. His team ended up getting the urn. Now he's really close to his next item, so I expect him after the scamp here, he should buy. But right away, this is, in my opinion, a small mistake because it's like you always want to know how much you need for your next item. I actually don't know what his next item is here. It could be Tank Buster or it could be a green item. If his next item is like Stamina Mastery, then it makes sense to keep farming. If his next item is Tank Buster, then it doesn't. So we'll just have to see what his next item is. Depending on what it is, this might be a great play or, you know, a little bit inefficient. But he could just get the 3200 here, buy Stamina Mastery. That might be what he does. It looks like he's going to keep going for a bit. So I'm assuming he's farming for something. One of the biggest tips I can give people is like when you're farming, always farm for something, right? Here, there was no other boxes to get. I was just double checking, making sure he didn't miss any. There's a couple here. We'll see if he goes for them. He's just kind of waiting patiently. He's probably considering what item to buy next. Doesn't want to get caught with a big bag. He's got a 1000 bag right now. So if he dies, that's really bad. Low-key, I think that going for this wave was actually super risky because everybody's missing on the map and nobody's showing. And if you go in with ground strike and you get caught by literally anything, you are dead. So I would have probably been slightly more passive there. Now he's going to go buy. He's got 3200, so he was definitely waiting for, he's going to buy Stamina Mastery. So ignore what I said earlier. This is completely fine because he waited for Stamina Mastery. Now he's got his item and he should look for something. He knows the Rift spawns left side. Both teams have all of their ultimates. Now going left side here, in my opinion, is like, it's okay, but it's very predictable because there's already people pushing left side. So I would prefer for him to maybe look on the opposite side. What happens a lot with Rift is that people tend to overstack on the side that Rift is about to spawn, which means that usually you have pretty good chance of like finding a pick on the opposite side before it spawns because it takes like a minute to spawn. So here, I wouldn't have hated if he just looked for a play on the opposite side or looked to pressure. And then afterwards, you can always take TP. And Lash is really good at arriving fashionably late to the Rift and just kind of like having a big ultimate once a lot of people have used their cooldowns. Now instead, he's going to go for the approach here where he just pressures the Viscous a lot, which is completely fine. Warden also shows up, but he's got Stamina Mastery, so there's 3 people, right? So you see how like people are already really stacked at the Rift side despite it not having spawned. So imagine Drifter and him, you know, go on the opposite side and push this lane. Chances are, the chances that they can find a pick are really, really high in my opinion. So just something to keep in mind in your games. You don't need to be on the Rift side like way before it spawns, right? Like you can look for plays elsewhere on the map as it's happening. Rift is about to spawn here. Like a bit of a random fight. One thing I will say is as far as his execution of the build, I think that Super is better at like playing a more standard Spirit Lash build. I don't think he's as used to this build. Like he is using Ground Strike a lot in this build, whereas you're not really supposed to use it a ton. This build is really like way more focused on just Flog with, you know, grapple and staying in the air forever and shooting people a lot. Like for example, here, most of the time, most of the people with this build would not really use Ground Strike there. Okay, Lash ult after Warden ults, probably unnecessary. This was a fine ground strike, obviously. That guy was 1 HP. Might as well kill him. So I would say overall, quite well played fight. Like I said, Super's mechanical skill are one of the things that help him the most. So in those fights, I think that Super is going to be naturally like going to be winning a lot of those. And he's also probably going to be like more attracted towards the objectives like Rift because his mechanics are so good, which means that he's going to win most of them, which means that he's going to value it more in his gameplay. So here, pressuring this Walker, I like a lot. I think you pressure Pocket a decent amount here. Now it looks like Pocket and Abrams both back up. This was not really Super's fault. I think his team should have been more focused on like trying to get a Walker because they lost one, right? They lost the middle Walker while getting the Rift. So, oh, that is unfortunate. Good play by McGinnis, though. That's more of a good play by McGinnis than a really bad play by him. She kind of came out of his blind spot. And here, honestly, they can still kind of fight. Okay, Viscous ult has been forced. Abrams is trying to get out. I'd love to see him get on a rooftop here, get good visibility, which he does. Okay, gets the turret. One thing about McGinnis is you really have to kill the turrets, but when she puts them down at first, they're like almost immortal. Really, really good movement here. Like this is exactly how you want to play that build. I would argue he didn't have to do that. I think he had Flog there. I'm going to rewind just a little bit because I think that that's one of his biggest mistakes with how he plays this build is like, okay, we didn't see it, but I'm pretty sure he had Flog there. So he could have just flogged instead of Ground Strike. Because Ground Strike actually made him take 500 damage there. Just the fact that he went on the ground made him take a lot of damage from Viscous Splatter, and I didn't think he needed to do that. Now here, this is also a mistake, because after he got the kills, right, they're down 2 people, and Viscous is 1 HP, and all the waves are pushing forward here. So you want to keep the pressure up, right? No matter how you keep the pressure up, the last thing you want to do is be on your side of the map. So I really hope he doesn't hit his centers, which he does. In this situation, I would have loved to see him keep pressure on this lane with his Grey Talon and Abrams, so they can have a chance at potentially getting the Walker. And the thing is, they have pressure on all lanes, right? So something's gotta fall. So if Drifter keeps the pressure on this lane, Paradox keeps the pressure mid with Shiv, like one objective had to fall. I'm pretty sure Pocket was completely alone on this Walker, and yeah, they were. So if he kept going, there's a decent chance something would have happened. So I would say that this is a missed opportunity macro wise. Now we're entering a little bit what some people might call dead time, right? Which is there's no urn, there's no buffs in play, there's no rift for a couple minutes. So there's really nothing going on. And you know, they still have 3 walkers. So during this situation, number 1 priority is wave pressure. For example, here, if you look at what he's doing, I really don't like it because I would love to see him deal with the wave rather than come here. So this fight doesn't matter a lot to me. I just want to see him push the waves. Once the waves are good, that's when I want to see him look for opportunities. But here, for example, this small camp doesn't matter at all to me. And I would argue that he's spending too much time in the mid lane rather than focusing on the map state. Now, all the time that he spent in the mid lane, look at what happened to both side lanes. Of course, you could argue maybe it's not his job to push the side lanes, but I think it's everyone's job to maintain all the lanes. So in this situation, going to the side lane made a lot more sense rather than, you know, going towards his Grey Talon earlier. Once the waves are good, and this time, you usually want to look to see if you can catch someone, you know, with having numbers over them, for example. Here he's got a lot of money. I hope he spends. I think he probably will, unless he's saving up for like Spirit Burn or something, which he might be. So, okay, one small thing that I will say that I don't love is here, when you have a situation like this, where all 3 waves are pushing, this is essentially like the best advantage that you're going to get, right? All 3 waves are pushing, so the enemy team has to deal with all 3. That means that it's very, very unlikely that they deal with all 3 appropriately. In fact, I'm going to hold F1 and I'm going to show you guys, just so you guys can see their positioning. This will happen very, very often in your games. As you can see, only 1 person at each side lane walker. What this means is that there's a lot of potential here to get a kill on either side lanes, right? So I'd love to see not only him, but most of his team put more pressure on the walkers in this situation so that they can potentially get something, rather than just, hey, we got pressure on every single wave. Let's use this time to farm our own jungle. Because when you have pressure on every single wave, it's a situation where you're at an advantage. And if you use that advantage to just farm your own jungle, well, right now, you're the team that's winning. If you just farm your own jungle, they're slowly kind of coming back into the game, and they're going to get more souls from farming than you are just because of comeback bonuses. Obviously, it's not much, but it's a little bit, and it makes it so farming is usually not the most optimal play. Instead, you want to try to apply pressure, especially when all the waves are good. But if the one explanation I can understand is if he wanted his item and he's saving up 6,400 souls, which he now has, I can understand that. Let's say he wanted to go Spirit Burn and he's like, okay, I'm saving up until Spirit Burn. I'm not going to fight. I could totally get that. Here he's going to go back to base. We'll see what he's going to buy. He buys Siphon Bullet. Yeah, that makes sense. I completely forgot about that item. Great item. Really good against heroes that have a lot of resistances. So for example, Warden has a lot of health. It's really good against Warden. It's really good against Viscous and Ball. It's really good against Yamato. And it's just good on Gunlash in general. So I'm happy to see him buy it. I'd love to see more aggression on the waves. You know, early on in the VOD review, when we looked at the stats, we saw, okay, his trooper damage is a little bit low. I think that his trooper damage could be significantly higher, and he could be pushing waves way more. So here Drifter uses ult. They've got 4 mid. Now look at this situation again, right? Both side lanes pushed up all the way. I really hope they look for something here, because in this situation, this is like the golden opportunity, right? This is what I'm always looking for. If I ever see this, I would feel pretty good about making most types of plays. Here, like, looking for an ult is an option, although they do have cube and pocket, so it's going to be very difficult to ult them, but I definitely want to try to, like, see them look for something. The Warden overextends here on the side lane, and they do look for the Warden. I think this is great. The one small caveat I'd add is, like, I really don't think that he should be running there. Because like I said earlier, you want to avoid splitting kills a lot, right? So in this situation, 3 of his teammates are already committed to the Warden kill. Now, whether they get this Warden kill or not, it's unlikely that he gets there in time to salvage this situation. So he's either going to get there and they're already going to have killed the Warden, or he's going to get there and by that time, it's probably too late and he would be better off split pushing. Because imagine this, right? Let's say he gets there, Warden hasn't died yet. What's going to happen is Pocket is going to keep pushing the side lane. Somebody else is going to push mid, right? Because they're literally all converging on this Warden. So even if they kill Warden, all of their waves are going to suck, and there's going to be split pressure on the other Walker. And 1 kill is not really enough to force mid consistently. So I don't really like how committed they are to, you know, getting this kill. Like, they're sending way too many people. Like, this Warden's guaranteed dead already, right? He's going to get here. The Warden's already dead, exactly as I foretold. And look at what all the waves are happening, right? The side wave is bad. This wave is bad. Mid lane is, like, even. Here, Pocket should be pushing the other Walker. I don't know what Pocket's doing. Pocket is doing the same exact mistake. So if you're Turnus 5 and you're watching this video, this is like one of the biggest things you got to watch out for, right? Splitting these walkers and applying pressure on side lanes is something that is like so underrated. And look what's happening is what Grey Talon is doing, for example, is exactly what Super should look to do a little bit more often. This is amazing pressure from Mr. Tomato on the Grey Talon. He took advantage of the opportunity. He got a walker, and that's how you really get a leg up, right? Getting one of those walkers is a shit ton of money as well. So that was a great play. Overall, I would say on the side of Super, did not need to go to that fight in the first place, and the macro looked really bad after he did. So while he was respawning, the enemy team did mid. Now we've got a big scramble on mid here. I don't have a problem at all with Super showing up to this. I think that the ult here was a little bit early perhaps, but you know, it's all good. It doesn't really matter. I don't think he needed to ult Warden, but you know, they got the Warden kill. I'm not too concerned about it, right? Like, might as well got the Warden kill. Perfectly fine. Their waves don't really look good at all. There's only one wave that they have that's at the enemy Walker. Other than that, the waves need fixing. In a situation like this, I would not really be doing the small camp. You really want to be applying pressure on waves. So one small thing that I would be doing here, that he's not doing, is I would be going for the mid wave, right? And then after getting the mid wave, I would go to one of the side walkers, either the one with Grey Talon or the one on the other side, try to apply some pressure. The respawn timers are bugged in replays, so I don't know exactly how long these respawns are, which makes it kind of hard to tell. But regardless, okay, the rift spawn, that changes things a little bit. I had lost track of the rift. I still think that he could have gotten the mid wave before he did anything. That would give him a little bit of extra chunk of change. And the biggest thing about getting the mid wave is that it reduces the risk of the enemy team split pushing as well, right? Like, for example, Grey Talon should have gotten the side lane before rotating too. And now here we're seeing the effects of Grey Talon not getting the wave. Now, Grey Talon was 1 HP, granted, but since he didn't get the wave, now it gives McGinnis the option to split push, right? So a lot of the time, getting one more wave is really just about limiting the enemy's options, more so than it is about just getting money and pressure, although it is also about that. Now, Grey Talon does show up to defend. Super gets the rift. So overall, you know, it all works out for everyone. And I would say that Super is making probably like 90% of the right decisions. There's just some small things. Like, for example, here, this aggression is very, very unnecessary because look at the waves, right? Mid wave is bad. Side lane is bad. This is the only good wave. Yes, they got the rift, but he failed to notice that most of his team has left him. So this was no longer a good time to be aggressive. Now, he should be okay because he's Lash and they don't really have a lot of great ways to catch him, but just something to watch out for a little bit. In the meantime, he's going to farm. This is something that I don't think he needs any advice about. I think he's doing amazing on the farm. He's always farming during downtime, which is great. All right, so we're going to switch up the pace of the video a little bit. As we get to near the 30-minute mark, one thing that happens in Deadlock is that once you get past 30 minutes, macro starts to matter a lot less because all that matters is really just the big team fights, right? Because you get one big team fight, you kind of win the game because you win mid boss, you get a lot of walkers. So the big team fights matter a lot. So we're going to switch gears and instead we're going to be focusing on the big team fights that happen. And we're going to be evaluating Super's gameplay in those. Now we kind of fast forwarded to the 32-minute mark, which is one of the first fights that we're going to see. So mid boss spawns. Most of Super's team is really, really hurt. Paradox is the first one to go. He tries to show up to this. And honestly, it doesn't really look good. And here he's going to kind of try to force it on the McGinnis. Catches the McGinnis out of position, so this might be a kill. If he gets cubed, thank you, Viscous. We all love Viscous. This is awesome. But to be fair, cube itself is not necessarily a huge problem, but don't mind the health bars a little bit. They're pretty broken in replays. It does not actually manage to catch McGinnis, which is kind of unfortunate. He might be able to kill her. Oh my god, they've got focus lens as well. Great kill. Tries to parry here. Unfortunately dies. Now, at the end of the day, I would give this 7 out of 10 for this fight performance. The one thing that I don't like is how forced he was, right? I think you really got to be patient on Lash, especially against these team compositions. So if you look at their team composition, they really have no way to stop Lash ult, right? So if you're just patient and you can get like a 2, 3, or 4-man Lash ult, you can completely turn around fights. So I think he went very early in a position that was not very good for Lash. Overall, the fact that he traded with McGinnis still makes it a 7 out of 10 because he did at least trade for one person, but it is going to give the enemy team mid. However, it's also not really his fault because Paradox died beforehand and his team was already really hurt by the time he got there. All right, now another fight here at 35 minutes. He's on the side lane. The enemy team has one Rejuvenator. This was after the mid boss. He sees Warden. He kind of goes to decide 1v1 Warden. A little bit of limit testing here happening. He's going to throw Warden under the Walker. I mean, so far he has pretty decent chances of killing him here. Great damage. Warden is dead once. Should be able to kill him twice. I really like this so far. Okay, the execution here. Ground strike a little bit. You got to be careful about those ground strikes, but I don't hate it. Calico goes on him. Unfortunately, he's already used the spell magic to remove the cage, so he just dies to the focus lens of Calico. A bit unfortunate, but overall, I wouldn't be too upset because his team also killed Yamato. He got the Rejuvenator out of Warden. So once again, I would give this one a 7 out of 10. I think that one thing that would benefit him in these fights is just using ground strike a lot less, especially since it's not maxed, being way more patient and focusing way more on staying in the air, which would limit the amount of risks that he has, especially against their team. If you look at their team, no one can interact with him when he's in the air. So I think if he was more patient and, you know, really abuse the fact that he has 3 grapple charges and just shoot his gun as much as possible, I think that these fights would go a lot better for him. All right, moving on, we've got another mid fight at 40 minutes. Now, his team is down 2 people, and Abrams is also 1 HP, so this is kind of like more of a Hail Mary fight, right? We're in the situation, they're down 20,000 souls. Here, he's going to go for a little bit of poke. I actually don't hate this at all, going a little bit early. All you want to do in this situation is really try to stall them if you can. If you can stall them, that's a huge success. Great damage that he gets on Yamato. A little bit of waste of stamina. I think that's one thing that he's got to be careful of. If he had a lot of stamina there, he would be able to escape no problem. Tries to man up on the Yamato. It's honestly okay. I mean, he has Crippling and Siphon. He might be able to kill her here. Unfortunately, does not quite manage to do that. So really needed to try to get out into the open. Fighting her in this hallway is not great. Now, honestly, given the situation, I think that this one gets an 8 out of 10 because he tried to stall. I think the biggest problem I had there is the stamina usage was not very good. And he ended up, you know, kind of getting stuck indoors for a while. Now, another fight, 43 minutes in. It is a 5 versus 5. The enemy team has 1 Rejuvenator. So they managed to screw it up yet again. McGinnis does ult here. There's a bunch of turrets. I really like that he's shooting the turrets. You want to make sure to get these turrets out of the game ASAP because they will do a lot of damage. They will mess you up. You don't want to screw around with those turrets. A little bit of an interesting use of grapple here. He's trying to run away. He's doing fine. He's kiting back. I like the fact that he's kiting back here. Goes on Viscous. Viscous is 1 HP. Should be able to get him, hopefully. Oh my god, it's close. Okay. Calico, 1 HP. Calico, sorry, goes on him. He's staying in the air. This is really good. The ult was not very good, but staying in the air was good, right? Like, I think he just needs to exert more patience with his ult. The situations where it will be good to use it will come. He just needs to, like, really stay in the air, be patient. Also, itemization-wise, I'm not sure I'm a fan of some of these decisions, but, you know, I would really prefer to see something like an Unstoppable at this point in the game compared to, like, Spellbreaker. Because I think Unstoppable deals with some of the issues better. Like, for example, he's getting Focus Lens and, you know, getting CC'd and killed. I think if he had Unstoppable, it would help him, and it would also guarantee that he can take his time with the ults. Well, to be fair, no one is building Knockdown or any stun to prevent him from ulting. All right, so we've got another fight here happening 45 minutes into the game. It's a 5 versus 5 here. No Rejuvenator in play. Sees McGinnis on the high ground, gets hit by Lightning Scroll. Really wants to stop the McGinnis ult, but he's actually just, you know, taking infinite damage from McGinnis. Classic McGinnis hero. On the low ground. Now, this is really where you want to exert patience. Unfortunately, he gets silence. But this is where you just want to get on high ground. You just want to keep shooting your gun as much as possible. Use your flog. That was fantastic. Great job. Yeah, this is really where an Unstoppable would be nice in these situations. Like, I think that he's getting caught a little bit too much by these things. I think fight-wise, I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. One thing that I would really love is like, I would love for him to play on these rooftops more and just like be able to shoot his gun consistently and really use grapple way more liberally than he's using. Like he's consistently having a ton of charges of grapple. It's completely bugged in the replay, so we can't really see it. But, you know, he has 2 charges of grapple because he sold extra charge, which makes sense. But I would really love to see him use grapple just more as a way to just stay in the air. I mean, it's a 16-second cooldown ability, and recharging rush gives you a 3rd one. So you've got 3 grapples within 16 seconds that you can use. And after 16 seconds, you'll get a 4th one. So you can really use a lot of grapples in the fight. And just the ability to stay in the air, as well as keep your weapon damage buff active, is really valuable. And I think he's underestimating that a little bit. And he's also putting himself in like close quarter situations often. So now we're moving towards potentially one of the last fights of the game here. In this situation, 48 minutes in, Warden just runs at him. His team has 2 rejuvenators and the mini team is down 2, mind you, right? So here, one thing I'd like to see is I'd like to see him stick on this Warden, or at least prevent this Warden from running away, because his team can 100% collapse on him. So I really like the fact that he went behind the Warden, cut off his escape path, right? Warden can no longer take the zipline. He has silencer here, which I'm not sure I'm the biggest fan of, but you know, why not? I mean, it's super late into the game, 50 minutes in, and he kills the Warden. I would give that like a 9 out of 10, the 9.5 out of 10. The reason why I subtract some points is that Warden had a small period of time where he could have taken the zip and escaped. And I think that if I were super, I just wouldn't want to give him that situation where he can escape at all. And I would want to make sure that I'm damaging him every couple of seconds at least. Wow, that is cheesy. That is a cheesy spot. I've actually not seen that, but I would want to make sure that I'm at least damaging the Warden here and there, just so I can keep him from ziplining. So here he gets afflicted. This is kind of like towards the last fights of the game. Affliction is a bit of a problem, but he's got a lot of his spirit resistance, so it doesn't actually hurt him that much. He's going to take 1,000 over the other shrine. I think in this situation, you really want to look for like a big lash ult, right? So positioning wise, I would be playing a bit differently. Wait, this could be really good. Okay, Dispel Magic's the Yamato grapple. It is unfortunate there's a turret on him. Otherwise, I would consider, you know, just taking the jump pad. If there wasn't a turret on him, he might still be able to take the jump pad. Like, for example, right here, no turrets. If I were him, 1 rejuve left. He's got ult. I would be taking the jump pad right now to try to get the best visibility of the fight possible, and then get at least 2 to 3 people on my lash ult. And then if you get that, if you just get 2 people, honestly, in your lash ult, I think it's GG right here. I think you guys will win. So I don't really like using ground strike there. As you can see, he took way more damage than he dealt anyway. Like ground strike, there's a reason why people are playing Gunlash, right? And Gunlash doesn't really care about ground strike. And honestly, using ground strike and tunnel visioning on the Yamato got him killed in that situation. So this one, I'm going to have to give like a 5 out of 10. I think that this is probably one of the fights that he's played the worst. And overall, I think one of the things that his biggest problem when it comes to fighting is he's just way too committed on targets, and he doesn't play the long game enough, right? He doesn't stay in the air shooting his gun as much as possible, which is really what this build wants to accomplish. So I don't think he's playing to the strength of the build, and I think he's playing like Lash used to play more, with max ground strike, max flog, and like a more of a burst spirit heavy playstyle, which is slightly less what Lash does today. All right, so that leaves us with the ratings. So first of all, for lane, I would give Super a 8 out of 10. I think that the primary issues that he had in lane were really just questioning, like it was just times where he was over aggressive where he didn't need to be. For example, when they have a full wave pushing in, when he ground strike with 150 HP, these were all like small little mistakes that can really add up to punish you, and for, you know, your deaths can add up and you can start losing lane. But other than that, he had great lane fundamentals, great understanding of wave priority. For the most part, there was one mistake, but you know, overall his abilities were used well. He was shooting his gun, although he wasn't proccing headshot booster off cooldown necessarily. And he was positioning himself decently. He was over aggressive at times where he shouldn't be, which is where I really docked the 2 points. He was also very efficient with timers for the most part, right? Like he was running boxes, doing the small camps, doing the things when they spawned. So that was really good. So a lot of good stuff. So 8 out of 10, 10 out of 10 being perfection, and you know, not really anybody hitting that. I think 8 out of 10 is really, really good, just to make it clear. Now for his mid game, I'd give him a 7 out of 10. Now I think the mid game is one of the weaker points this game. I think that he over rotated a lot to situations where he didn't need to. I think that he failed to recognize situations where they had all 3 waves pushing at once and they had great wave priority, and instead of doing something aggressive, he would instead farm a camp, farm a sinners, or do something like that. So I think that it was one of his weaker points this game. I do think that a lot of the fixes are really easy though. He just needs to be careful with over rotating. He needs to be a little bit more cognizant of wave states. He needs to be more aggressive on waves in general so he can get pressure so that he can be the ones initiating plays. plays. But other than that, I think that his understanding of the mid game is not bad at all. So I think 7 out of 10. But I do think that this is probably the thing he has to work on the most if he wants to like push for a turn of 6, for example. Finally, the late game. I think I'm giving him an 8 out of 10 because his mechanics are really good. So it like carries a lot of it. Now, his understanding of the build and the way to play Lash, I think would be more like a 6 to a 7 out of 10. But overall, his late game, like he wasn't really feeding. Yeah, he wasn't like caught out of position without, you know, any trades. Most of the decisions that he made sense in the late game. I think that it's just the way that he played the fights is really where I have to dock points because I think he could have done a lot better. And we didn't really see any big Lash ults, despite the enemy team not really having any counters to it. They had no stuns. We didn't see a single Lash ult interrupting McGinnis ult, right? Which should be one of the biggest things he's looking for. So I'm going to have to dock points for the execution of fights. But overall, a solid late game regardless. So finally, to answer the question, how good is Super? Well, he's very good. He's very good, and he's got some things to work on still, but he could very easily fix them. And considering it's not the only game he plays it on stream while reading chat and everything, I think that his skill level in this game, given the complexity, is honestly very impressive. And I was impressed myself watching the replay. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I've seen some Super gameplay, but he's improved a lot in the past couple of months as well. So let me know who you guys want me to do next for content creators, because I'd love to do more and just kind of share my thoughts. I think it's a kind of a cool format, and I will catch you guys soon.